What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Will and Rock MMA podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Let's just jump into some news real fast. We have Dominick Cruz finally coming back after his long layoff from injuries and everyone questioning him if he should still be commentating or should go into fighting full time. But Dominick Cruz is fighting John Lineker, which is a phenomenal fight at UFC 233. January 26th in Anaheim, California.
It's a great fight for John Lineker more than Cruz. Cruz is coming off of a big layoff, and he finished. The last time he fought, he lost to TJ Dillashaw, right, for the belt. Coming into a guy like John Lineker, who's in a freaking rampage right now, beating names like Marlon Vera, who he beat recently. He's coming in with bigger momentum than Dominick Cruz is. How much more could Dominick Cruz actually put in that octagon? The guy gets injured often. He's never 100% when he enters that octagon, and he's been in some wars as of late. So we saw the last fight with TJ Dillashaw. He was one step behind. I don't want to do any predictions, but we'll talk about it when the time comes. But I'm not
just to say, this is if anything, this is a great matchup for Dominick Cruz. You got someone like John Lineker who just is a power bomb, throws killer hands on both hands, quick speed. But what is one thing that Dominick Cruz does? Knows how to dominate people who are overpowered. And his footwork is by far one of the best in the business.
He started that.
Yeah, he started the movements. His movement, his awkwardness. I think that's gonna play a major role going into this fight. More than I feel Lineker's power is gonna take full stance.
We'll find out.
The next, let's get some Bellator. We always don't give Bellator enough credit. I think they're doing a phenomenal job and doing this back to back. So they got two events coming up, February 15th and February 16th. The headliner for February 15 is Mitrione versus Sergey
Karnatonov.
I always butcher these names. By the way, that's Bellator 2016, and they're fighting in Connecticut in the Mohegan Sun.
So you have a guy like Mitrione who knocks out Fedor Emelianenko, right? And then you have his next fight against Ryan Bader, and Ryan Bader just completely destroyed him and outclassed him. And then you have a guy like Sergey Karnatonov who's coming, a huge layoff, comes into Bellator, knocks the crap out of Roy Nelson, and now you got a guy like Mitrione. I think it's a great fight for Sergey. I believe Sergey has the upper hand going into this fight, not only because of the win, but he has powerful right hand, and Mitrione as of late has not been able to take those right hands. So we'll talk about that when that time comes through, but I just don't see it happening for Mitrione.
So the thing about Mitrione is known to spoil surprises. He's known to spoil people who've been in the game for a very long time and set them back. Mitrione is a force to be reckoned with, and he's one of these guys that he's a milestone. You have to beat him, especially in Bellator at this point. You got to beat him in order for you to go and fight the big dogs. You have to get past him, and you have to get past Roy Nelson. The fact that Sergey beat Roy Nelson and to knock out Roy Nelson, which no one necessarily has done, going against Mitrione is a great momentum. But I will say you have to beat Mitrione if you want to start stepping into the octagon with the bigger boys, especially with the layoff. Literally the next day, which is February 16, Bellator 2017, they're literally doing this back-to-back, guys. Bellator 16 and the 15th, and Bellator 6...
and both of them are in Mohegan Sun.
Both of them are in the Mohegan Sun, so it's just one day after another. And this fight will not headline for Bellator 227, but it's the third fight in the card, which is an explosive card with two amazing veterans, one being Roy Nelson and the other one being Mirko Cro Cop. Cro Cop wanted this fight to take revenge for what Roy Nelson did to him in the UFC. Cro Cop has been on a winning streak. He looks younger. He feels better. Biggest question I have is, if they're fighting in California, the man cannot take TRT. Cause when he was fighting out in Russia recently and he won a couple of those big fights, there's no way in hell he wasn't on TRT. I'm questioning how that is going to affect his fight with someone like Roy Nelson.
In Connecticut, you mean, not California, right?
Yeah, my fault. In Connecticut. I saw it serious.
I have to agree with you on that as well. Like, how much of that is being tested it is in an Indian resort, so you might be able to get away with some of this stuff. I don't know how exactly that works, but
No,
whatever the
it's a
case may
commission.
be,
It's a New York commission. It doesn't make a
Right.
difference what that
I think
is.
it is. But with that being said, it's a tremendous fight for both fighters. You know, whoever, you know, you could literally retire one of them once they step into the octagon. Crow Cup has been around for a very long time, taking a lot of losses, but he's won a lot more. And then you have a guy like Roy Nelson, who's really hasn't pulled one off in a while. Leaving the UFC, coming into the to Bellator, hasn't really been looking as good as he used to. So it's interesting to say who's gonna, you know, win this fight. I guess we'll talk about that also when the time comes.
It's really a toss up. It would be great to see Mirko come back a little bit, make a push like who am I thinking about? Andrei Arlovsky then. So we'll see how that plays out. Anyways, Donald Cerrone versus Alexander Hernandez, January 19th in the UFC with ESPN 1, which is going to be in the Barclays Center. They seem to be doing a lot for this card. It's going to be a free card. It's not going to be a pay-per-view event, and I feel like the UFC really wants to start off the relationship with ESPN the right way.
Like they did with Fox.
I know, but they're putting good fights, man. My point is that they're putting good fights for the first event that they're doing. So phenomenal job of them putting that together.
Yeah, of course, but you have to remember this is when they also headlined in the first card in Fox. Remember they had the big red carpets, and you had Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos.
Oh, I don't even remember that far.
There was a really good card. Of course, you're gonna freaking present it. I mean, ESPN, they're the leaders in sports, and finally got a contract. You have to put a card like that, and they picked up really good people, and they have really good names in this card. So it's exciting. This card is very exciting.
The reason why it's most exciting, because once again, it's free. That's my point. My point is, granted, they did it for FS1, but it's good to know that they're opening up a new relationship and people could actually watch this stuff for free, which is phenomenal. Yeah. And all right, so let's talk about the actual fight, right? So we got Donald Cerrone versus Alexander Hernandez. It's interesting what they're doing, I feel, with Cerrone. They're putting Cerrone up with like new big name upcomers versus putting him on a list where he might fight for that belt again. I find this really extremely weird that he's really like trying to Cerrone's back to making a name for himself. He took a bit of a layoff before the Perry fight, and he's just jumping straight into the octagon.
It's what he's known for.
It's what he's known for. How do you feel that they're putting him up against a fighter like this? Do you think he deserves a bigger name, a more household name, being that he is Donald Cerrone?
Definitely, I agree with you. He definitely deserves a bigger name than Alexander Hernandez. However, you know, they put him against Till the first fight. You know, made Till a big name to the point where even fought Woodley for the title. A guy like Alexander Hernandez who's coming off big wins, and they have so much hype behind this kid, and they're gonna put him against a guy like Donald Cerrone to put him out there. I'm tired of Cerrone taking fights to
give people different.
Yeah, man. Yeah. He's been in the game for a long time. He's done so much more for the UFC. He's one of the top winners in the UFC. Give this guy a big name. He deserves it. He brings people to, you know, seats and asses in seats. Like, he needs more better fighters. I mean, I shouldn't say better necessarily, but bigger names.
Yeah, more household names. Because that's what Cerrone brings to the table. He's become a household name.
With that being said, he is going down to light heavyweight. Down to lightweight. To fight Alexander, so it's also something that he wanted to test out. So I'm interested to see how exactly he's going to perform.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the bigger guy going into this fight. But but when it comes to power and speed, when you got somebody so young like Alexander Hernandez, how is that going to play off for Cerrone? You know. Hopefully, experience will win that fight for him.
All right, brother. Let's get to UFC 231.
UFC 231, Halloway versus Ortega. First fight, which was phenomenal. We had Thiago Santos versus Jimmy Manuwa. What an explosive fucking fight. Manuwa looked like he was seconds away from knocking out Santos, but Santos looked like The thing about Santos is that not only could he take a punch, but when he gives it back, it's explosive.
He's one of by far the hardest right hands in the UFC right now, especially in the light heavyweight division.
He's a force to be reckoned with, right? He's a force to be reckoned with. He knocks out Jimmy Manuwa in the second round. And we're talking about Jimmy Manuwa, who could take a punch too. That's the thing that is most important to understand. Is Manuwa could take a punch. Thiago Santos came out and just devoured him.
I mean, it was a little sloppy. They were just swinging back and forth, and it just happens that Santos calculated that right hand to put him down on his knees.
The thing about Manuwa was actually more patient this time around. Manuwa's usually the one that comes out bombing. Manuwa had more patience, was able to deliver some of the punches more of in a distance stance. Problem with Santos is Santos just kept coming after him to the point where there was no retreat. Like, he needed to move forward, and when he decided to move forward, he got impacted, and Santos ended up winning the fight. Phenomenal fighters. I think this sets back Manuwa a little bit, but people starting to know what Manuwa is about. Manuwa's I feel 2 fights away from jumping right back into the octagon with Thiago Santos, because it's totally worth seeing again, my personal opinion. But kudos to Thiago, man. Huge stepping stone to get over Manuwa. I'm really curious what the UFC is going to put him up with the next. Next fight we got Hakeem. Fucking forgot his name.
Dawodu.
Dawodu. Yeah, I think it is Dawodu versus Kyle Bochniak. This fight, that's another amazing fight.
Bochniak.
Fucking shit, bro. I kept thinking in the back of my mind, Bochniak. Yeah, but he fought Kyle Bochniak. And same thing, man. Hakeem came out. They both came out guns blazing. A great fight. And Hakeem ended up taking the split decision. That fight is worth watching again, because such a great technical fight. Both guys went down. Both guys got up. Great stand-up game, great ground game. These new fighters coming into the octagon are so well overall fighters. It is scary.
You know,
what the sport's gonna be in another 2 or 3 years.
That's a very good point. We started to see this more and more often, where they put a big name to start off the card, and then they put what I would consider a no-namers, because I really don't know these 2 fighters, and they put them in the middle of the card. So I'm pretty sure they're doing that obviously on purpose, because
they force you to watch.
They force you to watch the card. It's going to be a good card, but also to give them an exposure, right? And they come and they deliver. It's been happening often in every single card. We don't know too much about these fighters, so the predictions are always not the best when it comes down to these fighters, for you and I at least. But they always deliver. I mean, they went down to the split decisions. Congratulations to both fighters. They fought an amazing fight, man.
Next fight, which I was really looking forward to, and I was complete shock, to be quite honest with you. The man, Gunnar Nelson, ended up fighting Alex Oliveira. And I will tell you, there were suspicions going into this fight that Nelson was on some sort of steroids, just because he looks bigger. He just looks more stronger in this fight.
He was just a little more cut up than we're used to. I mean, he's never shaped like with that brolic, right? But this time around we were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But you know, to mention one thing about Gunnar Nelson, this is a guy. I mean, the performance that he put up was one of the best performances of his career, without a doubt. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, hands down.
And everybody that trains with him, and they always talk so highly of him. Like, this guy is just a force to be reckoned with. He just hasn't been able to put it together in the octagon, and the performance that he put up is like, I don't know what got into him necessarily, but congratulations, tremendous performance by Gunnar Nelson.
So the great thing about Gunnar Nelson is that he did it in the right time. He did it with a fight. Like, there was a lot of hype behind him coming into this fight again, and he delivered. Delivered, bro. His stand-up game had Oliveira completely confused. Finally hurt him, and his jiu-jitsu background, because if there's anything about Gunnar Nelson, is that he's a jiu-jitsu specialist, took someone like Alex Oliveira, who's also a black belt jiu-jitsu fighter, to the ground and submitted him. Yeah. It shows you, and you know, we always.
But let's not forget about this elbow. That elbow was fucking vicious.
First of all, the elbow that he threw was so fucking disgusting that when Oliveira got up, there was flesh sticking out of his head, man. The amount of blood he lost in that fight takes years out of a fighter's life, and it sucks to see, but it's part of the game. And to devour someone like Alex Oliveira, who's been on a tear as of late. The way you dominate him, and then you look for the opening and you submit him, it just shows you where Gunnar Nelson's at right now, mentally and as a fighter. You just mentioned something very key about someone like Alex Oliveira, Gunnar Nelson, excuse me. A great jiu-jitsu guy, but really hasn't learned to put it all together. He did it. He found a way to put it all together, which makes him probably the scariest guy to go up against. Gunnar Nelson's not the biggest name in the competition, but now he's going to start asking for bigger names. And these guys
as he definitely
hands
should
down
after this performance.
And these guys who have those big names fighting against Gunnar Nelson, it's going to be it's only a matter of time before Gunnar Nelson starts to become really a talk of the town and talk about title contention. So really looking forward to what Gunnar did. Gunnar did a phenomenal job. Kudos to them. You know, there's not much to say about Alex Oliveira. Oliveira really just came out with his game plan. He wasn't the better man in the fight. So kudos to him. Next fight, we had a fucking phenomenal fight, my brother. Phenomenal. Valentina Shevchenko versus Jonna Jędrzejczyk. It was just what we expected it to be. Yeah. Don't want to give myself too much credit, but I did have Valentina completely dominate in this fight. I said it from the beginning. I said Valentina, the only person I really feel that Valentina could lose to, would be Amanda Nunes, and I do feel like that last fight was still a close fight with Nunes, and I'll still fight for Shevchenko in that last fight. But guess what? She's now the champion. She just beat somebody who is considered to be the best women's fighter in MMA right now, and end up beating her.
Who? Jonna?
Yeah, Jonna's still
at one point. After Rose just demolished her.
Right, but at the end of the day, you have to remember how it was
she
done.
Was one of.
Yeah,
she's not is. We have to be able to make that very clear. Her game plan when she fought the first time, Rose Namajunas just completely
dominated her the first fight.
Dominated the first fight, and you would think that she would learn from that mistakes or like look over the tape and with her camp as well and see what changes could have been made. The second fight was the same exact thing.
It wasn't a dominance. It wasn't but you have to understand one thing, right? To make somebody that great, you have to be able to sweep through a division, right? Rose hasn't done that, and I'm not taking things away from Rose. If you think about Rose, lost a lot of fights going into her becoming the champion, and she deserves everything she got. Don't want to take it away from her. Jonna dominated that weight class. To the best fighters in the industry had to throw at her. Rose has not proven herself yet, and granted she beat the champion, she's still not stabilized as the face of women's MMA just yet.
But neither is Joanna.
But my point is, Joanna was there at one point. I know.
What I disagree with you is that you're saying she's the best fighter in the women's.
I said that she's one of the best fighters, and she's still looked at as one of the best fighters in the women's division.
Yeah, which is we're not seeing, and this is what Joanna needs to really look into. Is just we're not seeing her evolve. It seems like everybody has her card at this point because she's fighting the same exact fights over and over and over. Now it worked with the beginning of her career in the UFC. As she's stepping up to this competition, you need to learn how to change things around. It seems like she's going in with the same exact game plan every single fight, and people are reading whatever strategy she's bringing into the octagon, and that's what she's getting. She's losing.
So the best thing about Valentina, and Joanna kept talking about she's going to make history becoming a 2-class champion. The thing about we don't realize is that Valentina could easily do that. Like, Valentina is the person for that face of that weight class. Yep. Valentina is the person that could evaluate her weight. She could go up in weight easily, drop weight easily.
And she looked good.
She's a professional, bro. She's phenomenal. Yeah. She's phenomenal. And a little background history between both of them. They were both Muay Thai fighters, and Valentina had beat her 2 out of 3 times. No, I'm lying. No. 2 out of 2 times that they fought. Yeah. And going into this fight, this sealed the deal. I don't think Johanna deserves a rematch. I think Johanna really needs to evaluate her camp. I do agree with you 1,000%. She needs to reevaluate everything she's bringing into the octagon at this point, because it's almost like Jose Aldo. People got her card, you know. Mm-hmm. Jose Aldo found a way to reevaluate his career and came in and end up winning this last fight. She should do the same, because when you're at that type of level, you need to be able, if you want to be known as the best of all time, you need to be able to get with the game plan that comes with fighting.
It's all about evolving your game plan. It's hard, I could imagine, at that peak of her career where she was just so dominant, to now change her game plans. But I think it's more about learning the fighters the fighter's game as well before going in, because if you're performing the same exact way, you just repetition is not going to be working. I mean, not with the evolution of MMA as we
I couldn't agree with you more, dude. And then last but not least, by far one of the best performances that I've seen Max Holloway put. Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega, which was for the championship belt. Going into this fight, I was a little bit tossed up between both. Not because I questioned Max Holloway, it's because I saw what Ortega did to Frankie Edgar, and what I saw, the layoff, the massive layoff that Max Holloway had going into this fight. I will say this. There is nothing like this for the little thing there, Chris. Max Holloway, and this is my biggest fear with Max Holloway. He devoured Brian Ortega, right? Problem with Max Holloway is that he's taking way too much impact to be able to deliver victories. How long could you do that for? The crazy shit about it is that the homie is 27 years old. He is extremely young, and he hasn't reached his prime. Would he be able to reach, and granted, I'm pretty sure he's in his prime at this point, and he is the champion. When he finally decides to reach a full level of fucking primeness, who are they going to put him up against? And is he going to still be able to take punches the way he does?
That's a very good point. His performance time in and time out of this octagon never comes easy with whatever fighters he's fighting against. He does the best performances of the world. Where I do believe he is the best lightweight champion we've had in a very long time, if not the best.
Well, I think he's the best.
I would have to agree with you. He's most likely the best champion at that weight class. Every time he gets into that octagon, he's a boxer. He wants to stand up with you, just like he did with Brian Ortega, and beat your face in. In the process, he's taking some punishment as well. Because he's young, he's able to perform the way he's been performing, and he might be able to perform like this a couple of more fights. How much longer, I don't know, but let's not take that away from him. He's the freaking guy. I mean, he's the BJ Penn of 2018, just because they come from Hawaii. And I don't like to mention BJ Penn like that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. You know what I mean? He's so fun to watch fight, and Brian Ortega is another motherfucker. I'm interested to see who they're gonna put up Ortega. But with that being said, Chris just wrote some things down. Halloway and Ortega won 50K each for fight of the night. Halloway won performance of the night. He won an extra 50K. So right then and there, the motherfucker had 100 G's in his pocket. That's not with the win. And then other performance of the night went to Thiago Santos with the big TKO of
versus Jimmy Manuwa.
Yeah, Jimmy Manuwa. Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's state affirmed that Max Holloway is by far the best fighter pound for pound in the UFC. When we got rid of Demetrius Johnson, I do give him the number one pound for pound. There's people on the come up. I mean, Jones is still not ended his career. TJ Dillashaw still really knocking on that door, and then you also have Cormier, who's just completely dominant. We still have John Jones. That's all I have to say about that. You know, kudos to Max Holloway and everything. That card, by the way, put up perfect. It could not work out better for the UFC. Yeah. Great performance in Canada.
Sold out. They did 2.5 million views. I mean,
it's great.
It's good for the UFC. It's good for the fighters. I'm just looking forward to the next card.
I think there's so many things coming up. You got the Gustafsson fight happening next week versus John Jones. Then you have another fight. I can't even recall what's happening the week after. There's so much happening and so much. They're going to end 2019 with a bang if people stay away from injuries. So either way, man, kudos to everybody. Thanks for supporting us and continue to watch us, all right?
Peace,
guys.